So the panel will be on the digitization of higher education, the upgrading of curriculum, examination, assessment and engagement. And the panelists for this session are Dr. Nitin Malik, who is the Joint Registrar at Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, joined by Dr. Raj Singh, who is the VC at Ansal University, further joined by Mr. Arpit Badjatya, who is the CEO and MD at SEROSOFT at Academia, and Mr. T.K. Arunachalam, who is the Regional Director of South Asia, Cambridge Assessment English. The moderator for this session is Mr. Utkarsh Lokesh, who is the CEO and Editor at EdTechReview. Panelists, you can please take the stage.
So, simply because he did obviously a very brief introduction about your job title. So if you can briefly describe your current role on campus or organization, that would be great. So if we start with you, Arpit.
A very warm good morning to all of you. I'm Arpit Badjatya, the CEO and founder of SEROSOFT Solutions. Our flagship product is the Academia Student Information System, which helps universities, colleges and schools automate all their processes. We are currently serving over 200 customers across 10 countries, so we have been able to take the product to other locations as well. Very happy to be here and privileged to be amongst such an august crowd.
Morning everyone, I'm Dr. Raj Singh, Vice Chancellor at Ansal University in Gurgaon. One of the questions sent by Utkarsh was that what is your current role? While Vice Chancellor is self-explanatory, I was wondering what is my role? And I would summarize in two sentences. One, which is trying to create symphony out of very contradicting roles, And second, someone who's standing at the bridge between the past, which is trying to find its identity into heritage and culture, region, language, on one hand, and the future, which is exciting and scary at the same time. I'm sure during the discussion we'll talk about certain advancements about technologies, being on technology conference. They'll make life easy, but at the same time they'll scare us with issues like losing control and losing privacy altogether. I'm sure these issues will come up in the discussion. Quickly telling, this is the 5th university I'm heading in 5 different states and all private. Yeah. Thank you.
Good morning everyone, my name is Arunachalam. I think this is an August panel, but then I have a slightly unique position here because I work with the University of Cambridge, so I'm one side part of the academia, but I lead on a language enterprise, so I'm kind of part of the industry as well. So we work with the academia, we work with the university, we work with governments in terms of building skills. I think this morning's inaugural session, I think, was quite revealing in terms of how universities are then looking at knowledge, can also look at skills. So from Cambridge, that's the role that we try and do. We work with schools, universities, colleges to try and see how we can amplify some of these English language skills challenges that many universities have. Just to kind of add to what Sir has said is that I think this room has got a lot of knowledge. I think there are a lot of ideas. Sometimes what happens in great conferences like this is that there are a lot of ideas discussed and there isn't much time for reflection. I think people are just rushing off to another conference or another event. Sometimes maybe I think some of these good headline speeches, I think it will be good to have some time for reflections as well so that we can try and take some of that and internalize it. Thank you.
Good morning and apologies because I got stuck up in the traffic, sorry for that. And it's really a great opportunity to be here to learn more about the technologies, to have with the senior people over here who are, especially when I was hearing one of the panelists, he was saying that it's his 5th university and all private. I come from a state university, majorly controlled by the government, and that is where we have to see like how the technology or how the new innovation, how it comes down to the government sector also when it is a more freedom to be carried out in the private sectors over there. So experimentation and carrying out the things is more difficult in a setup where we have to take a lot of approval, but no doubt the university which I belong to, which I am coming from, the Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, or commonly known as the IP University, is really a pioneering university which has done a lot of changes in the growth of the technology, and they specialize into the kind of a professional education in Delhi and in NCR. So it will be a learning experience, and definitely interacting with you all, the august panel and the people sitting in the esteemed people sitting in the academia, or the people from the industry sitting over here, it will be a learning experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Malik. Arunachalam, I'll start with you. Maybe what's your take on redefining higher ed in the digital era, and how do you think tech can transform the key elements of curriculum assessment?
I think from Cambridge, the current research work that we're doing is focusing on what we call as learning-oriented assessment. I think it's kind of shaking some of the fundamentals of what is being done inside a classroom. Why are we teaching? Why are we sharing knowledge about a subject? Is that at the end of the day, we want a learner to be engaged with that subject, so that the whole point of, say, credentials, say someone gets an A star or someone gets 90% and all of that, means that it's a measure of their learning, not exactly how much they know of the subject. So the current research is that, I think, when you look back at India, this is what Cambridge is doing now. Our traditional Gurukula system in India was following that. I think we are looking at adaptive learning, personalized learning. This is what we are doing for millennia, but right now the challenge that we have, I see, is that we have to do what we did in that ancient system of India and at scale. I think we need to look at 200 to 250 million students who are in the education system. How can we do personalized learning? How can we manage their learning? And how can we adapt that to their needs? I think this is the challenge that we have. It's not about dissemination of knowledge. I think access and some of that is still a challenge, but I think India has kind of crossed that. Currently we are looking at getting the best out of the system, for which we need to kind of look at every individual learner. So my take on this is that technology has a very significant role in taking it to scale, and also kind of making sure that we can personalize. So when you look at some of the marketing presentations that they try and do, how they define the lead, how they categorize the lead and all of that, I think universities spend a lot of time in trying to do all of that to get the students inside. But once the student is inside, are we doing something similar before they go out? So I think similar technologies can be used. So I think we feel that some of the marketing technology, what's happening outside, it's not that Google is doing something or Apple is doing something. We can try and learn from some of it. I think universities are centers for innovation research. I think if we can try and do something in our learning, I think that would be helpful. And the last part is that I think we need to question what's happening, or the role of a university as well. Is the role of a university a role of a professor to talk about a certain subject? So this morning I can quote that. I think one of the key skills that came about when the Chancellor of Shobit University talked about was leadership skills. If you give leadership skills to a university to say, okay, we need to develop leadership skills. I have spoken to quite a few business schools and universities in India. What would they do? They would call a professor, say, let's do a subject on leadership. They will do definition of leadership, 10 things on how to do leadership, and there will be an examination evaluating your leadership skills. This is how we kind of programmed to think sometimes in a higher education, that this is how you do leadership skills. Sometimes we miss that interaction. I think leadership skills, these are skills. They can only be developed by practice. Getting the students to kind of form groups, running events, doing projects together, those are all foundation blocks of any learning. Currently, I think we're kind of jumping to a solution straight away, saying that by doing leadership as a subject, we feel that leadership skills can be developed. I think those are the questions that we should be asking some of our traditional universities. This is what we want to do in our system. So technology has a role to play. I think some of these skills, we really can use technology to amplify that. The knowledge, I think we are doing very well in that part of it. Thank you.
Get it. Dr. Singh, what's your take on and the efforts that you are putting?
It's a very general and broad question. Let me try to answer what I've learned over the last 2.5 decades. I keep visiting various institutions as a part of accreditation teams. And if I put a summary of what problems are there and how do we resolve it as we move forward, wherein a role of technology cuts across all these areas which I'll be covering. And these things are echoing in the recent draft National Education Policy, which has been released about a week ago. And all over the country, discussions are going on. And one of them is that academia has to integrate with the industry, not only in terms of talking on paper, but I think it has to happen on ground. How it can happen, I'll tell you a couple of ways of doing it. Second is interdisciplinarity or multidisciplinarity. You must have read that by 2032, all affiliated colleges will be over from this country. And by 2023, it is aimed at the stand-alone colleges teaching only engineering, only management, only pharmacy will be closed, or they turn multidisciplinary. So it is also now being institutionalized that human beings cannot learn one subject in isolation. They have to find their applications and interlinkages of other disciplines, and that can happen only when students from different disciplines interact together in the classroom on common projects or issues, organizing various events, and even working on certain general topics of the projects. The third thing is globalization, wherein while we benchmark our own institutions within the country and the sector, I think there are a lot of best practices, including adoptions of technology, also can be learned from foreign collaborations. My experience of 2.5 decades in education has been that all the collaborations which we have had, whether they were legal or illegal, they were legitimate or illegitimate, right or wrong, whether they were permitted or not by the regulatory bodies, they have done a lot of good to the education sector in this country. We have learned certain things which we would have never learned, rather we were averse to. And one of them is, of course, outcome-based education, which is now the only future. And the fourth thing is character building. Now, character building, you must be wondering how we'll use technology. It can be used in a big way. I can cite an example. In my university, we have adopted villages like any other university, which is mandated by government under Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. And we have adopted 5 villages in Gurgaon district. And the first project the students did interacting with the farmers. Sometimes farmers have to walk 1 hour up and 1 hour down just to switch on the motor when the electricity supply comes to irrigate their fields. And another 1 hour plus 1 hour they have to go there just to switch it off when the supply is gone off. So what they've done, they have developed an app sitting at home with the help of mobile, they can switch on and switch off. So 4 hours of travel on foot has been reduced. And the second thing what they're doing, they are now working on a prototype of developing a sustainable home. They've taken the chopal of the village and they're making it sustainable in terms of water conservation, which will provide drinking water forever. Second, renewable energy. And third is cooking gas or biogas. After this prototype is ready, we'll see whether we can include a group of houses to make it more economical, more sustainable in terms of scale of production. And then use technology to optimize, to distribute energies within the group of the houses. And once this is done, we've been able to rope in a lot of vendors who are able to subsidize various equipments. We replicate it over those 5 villages and beyond. Now for me, for students, it's a character building exercise in the sense that you know the problems at grassroots, you reach out to the people who have certain basic needs which you would never come to know sitting in a 5-star hotel of this kind in an air-conditioned hall. My request to all the academia here would be, or even the education service providers or technology providers, to focus on not only the institutions here, but in the rural area and just drive 40 kilometers, not more, not much. The condition is absolutely upside down. And I think that's where the learning lies for our students. Now these 4 pillars in an outcome-based education supported by cutting-edge innovation and technology, I think is the way forward. The second issue which I think was touched upon of inclusivity or the reach of education, open distance learning is one such way enabled by technologies, and these days many lectures online are more effective than face-to-face classroom. I had the opportunity of interacting with one of the founders of Coursera, Daphne Collar. And somebody asked him, an Indian professor, that man, when it comes to distance learning, what happens to the learning in the classroom within those 4 walls of the classroom? And she gave a brilliant answer, and she said, distance learning starts from the 2nd row in the classroom, because the teacher is only with the 1st row. Beyond that, then distance learning more. And if that be so, if you logically extend it to the people who are unreached so far, enabled by technology, I think it's equally impactful. And in that, it is further strengthened by the use of technology in assessment and evaluation. You may be aware, recently one of my articles was published, and on LinkedIn I got perhaps maximum interest in that ever in my life. I have reached views of 80,000 plus on some of the posts, but this was most interesting in terms of quality views and quality comments. That IIT Delhi is introducing a pilot for evaluating the answer books through artificial intelligence. And there are not the objective type answers, this is descriptive type answers. Another private university in Rajasthan has already ordered adoption of this. They have ordered a few tablets which can be used to write the examination descriptive answers instead of a paper answer book, which can be stored. It's reusable. If you use this tablet over a period of 7-8 years, the cost of the tablet will be less than answer book per student. And they are stored and evaluated through artificial intelligence with declaration of results in a matter of a week. Not only that, analyzing and giving feedback to the students as well as the institutions for future improvement in the curriculum, testing, pedagogy, and what kind of measures to be adopted. I think this is revolutionary. These kind of things we have to consider while delivering and assessing a program. And my final point is that use of technology, which cuts across all the 4 pillars which I mentioned, is when we'll be able to shift from classroom to labs in a changed form. Without any offense to engineering colleges, according to me, maximum damage to engineering colleges have been done because of the concept of labs, where you schedule a 4-hour lab and every student on average is able to work for 20-25 minutes only, but 4 hours are counted. We move from the lab to simulators. Thanks to availability of smart robots, they are able to simulate human beings to the extent of 98-99%. When you can simulate different conditions through programming and see how human beings behave, and you find solution to the problems in real life. So my motto recommended is 45% in the classroom, drastically reduce the classroom contact hours, 30-35% in the simulated labs, and remaining 25-30% in the industry with real human beings. Now that's a challenge. Industry people don't want us to work with them because now industry have opened verticals, including Big Fours have education verticals, by the way. When you went to them and said that we want your help to make our students learn real life, they said, okay, I'll teach you this course, give me so much of money, and they take a major part of your fees. And teachers never get trained. So I think that is changing now. Create 100 projects in your own campus, create 100 projects in the nearby village, and make students work on that. Because human beings are human beings, whether they're in multinational companies or in the village, because we work for them. And then this way you're able to work on the field, move them out of the classroom, air-conditioned classrooms of Delhi. Unless they go out, they will not learn. So classroom, simulators, and on-the-job training is the model ahead, which has great resonance, as I mentioned in the beginning, in the new education policy which has been just. Only fear is that the final draft should not lead to over-regulation, because the government agencies, including the universities, affiliating universities, Dr. Shah mentioned, are discussing and vehemently proposing regulations of the institution, which National Education Policy says autonomy, autonomy, autonomy. I believe that final draft will have it, and we will be spared of over-regulation of academic sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's really gold for someone like us to learn a lot from the practitioners. Arpit, you have a different background, but based on your conversations with partner institutions, what have you experienced? And specifically, if you can touch upon the point Dr. Singh mentioned about losing control and privacy as well. So if you can comment on that also.
Absolutely. So I'd like to first start by analyzing the impact of technology in higher education by focusing on the core and then moving out. And when I say core, it's the student. For the student, what technology has entailed, as Mr. Arunachalam also mentioned, is an incredible era of personalized learning. And we are hitting a zone where we are able to really tailor-make content and deliver it to students at scale across regions without much of a cost investment at all. And if we go from students, if we focus on students further, we also see that there is constant feedback that technology enables to be delivered to students, which further enhances their learning path, and which is where they can focus on some of the key improvement areas and get the best out of their education. If I move out into the next concentric circle, it's the teacher. How technology has impacted the teacher. We believe that the teacher has incredible powers using technology now to present their content in a more efficient way. And with all the resources that are available on the internet, on the technology platforms, it is so much more convenient for a teacher to incorporate various facets of learning within the classroom teaching that they do, and then use it to disseminate information to the students in a much more efficient and a collaborative way. I believe technology has helped move the focus from teaching to learning and discovery. And that is where we believe the teachers are getting empowered with the new advent of technology. There are various other platforms that teachers use, like blended learning, flipped classrooms, which I'm sure a lot of people are already aware of, where they give the power to the student to drive their coursework, and the teacher starts to be a facilitator. So all of these models, new models where student engagement by the teacher can be enhanced, have only been possible through technology. If we take one step further, another concentric circle, that's the administration in the college or the university. I think what technology has enabled for them is quick access to information, actionable information. We are a student information system, education ERP ourselves, and we see that information and data that is collected in the platform being utilized by a lot of higher education leaders in a more effective way these days. Mobility has enabled that even better because that access to information now through mobile apps, etc., is much more available, and so the directors, the vice chancellors, etc., in the university or the college can really take actionable decisions and then track them using the feedback mechanisms that are availed through by technology. If we go to the next concentric circle, it is the overall institution. I believe for the institution, the technology has enabled much more cohesive, collaborative, and inclusive approach to education. I believe that a lot of people within the institution now, because they have access to information and various data available at their fingertips through mobile apps or their portals, feel a lot more included in the whole education process. And thereby, I think it has led to a transformation in terms of efficiency, productivity, and for the overall stakeholders, we have seen that technology has enabled unlocking of hours, like Dr. Singh was also talking about, unlocking of hours from redundant activities to more core activities. So a teacher today does not need to spend a lot of time, kind of collating data in a paper sheet and then really processing that using a number of staffs. A student information system like ours can enable the teacher to just collate it once into the system, and then all the processing, recording, and release of results can be done at the click of a button, thereby saving the teachers and all the other stakeholders, the controller of examinations, unlocking incredible hours which they can then focus on the core value or the core objectives of defining learning outcomes at the course, at the program, or the institutional level. And finally, the last concentric circle which gets affected by the technology advent is the whole education ecosystem. We've talked of the fact that how India as an educational community will grow will only happen by being more collaborative, not being
outcomes. When I taught them into the classroom, I test them on something else. So my learning outcome either is not there, or if it's there, it's A. I teach them B and test them on C. I think this is what we have to come out of. We have to make learning very, very scientific. Also, I'll just take one more minute to delve on a point when you're talking about outcome-based education. As we move from lowest to the highest level of learning outcome, I think we need to also look at our pedagogy. We need to expand learning opportunities so that students can reach higher level learning outcomes. And one of them is that make them learn other subjects. So application comes immediately. So when you as an engineering student, you discuss with law student, you will know what are the issues involved in intellectual property rights when you innovate something. When you work with the management student, you would know what are the project management issues, what are the finance and cost and benefit analysis. Ultimately, this is meant for the human beings. When you work with a science student, it's a different thought process. That science is meant to resolve the human issues. So making students work together on a common issue, I'll take an example and then stop there. We gave a project to students of 8 students together. And the topic was to study adverse gender ratio in the state of Haryana. So we covered Gurgaon and Mewat districts, and they undertook study of a couple of villages. And they went with certain hypotheses saying that myth in our society is that to save a girl child or not to save is the decision taken by the men in the family in a male-dominated society. And the findings were exactly opposite of that. It was the women who took decision. They want a son only. The second issue they came to know, which was incidental, and they never went with this objective. Last Panchayat election, Haryana government announced certain educational qualifications for panchas and sarpanchas, for men and women, for reserved category, for general category. And there were families in one of the districts where the headship of village has been with that family for last few generations. Now, given the qualification, and because the seat is reserved for women in the family, no women in the family was eligible for contesting elections. Mind you, ladies and gentlemen, certain societies, they murdered their daughter-in-law to marry again their son to get an eligible daughter-in-law. They married again if they could marry, to have an eligible wife or daughter-in-law in the family, so that they can retain the headship of the village. Now tell me, which classroom, which pedagogy, sir, and which lab and which simulation will teach this, unless you go and work with the human beings. And you learn certain things which you can never learn in the classroom, and to me, it's the highest level of learning outcome which I have imparted to my students. I think this is where we have to look at it. Interdisciplinarity. Never allow students to remain in isolated classrooms. I do not know if somebody represents AICTE, Manna sir was to come, he is not here. I singularly blame All India Council for Technical Education for putting educations into watertight compartments. You know, when they used to come for inspection, many of you would have tolerated them. They'll say you need a piece of land and make a building vertical on this. And don't put wooden partitions because weak, put a brick partition. They didn't want us to go deep into the basement. I think education needs depth and breadth. They prohibited us from both of the things. They said, no, go vertical. I think we need to have vertical interaction and produce people with horizontal skills and not only with vertical skills. This world is meant for horizontal skills. They will become the leaders and produce leaders. Thank you.
Any more questions there? Yes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. A very good morning once again, especially to Dr. Nitin Malik, because he belongs to the same industry which I am from. Thank you. Sir, I have 2 questions. One is from one is to Mr. T.K. Arunachalam, and the second question is to rest of the panels. My question is, sir, you are from India, and you are associated with Cambridge, and you appreciated Gurukul system, and there were 7,48,000 Gurukuls in this country, which eventually got eroded. But you appreciate it, I am happy. How, sir, Gurukul system salient features can be incorporated into the modern education system with the help of technology? So this is fine. Sir, rest of the question is to the rest of the panelists. Sir, science is a good slave, but a bad master. Is this not true for the technology also? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So, I think I'm proud of being part of this country. I think there's lots of things that I think the world should know about India, and we should be proud about sharing that as well. But to kind of caveat your question is that just because the Gurukula system worked in the past doesn't mean that just exact replication of that right now will solve all our problems. I think we should be mindful that something's worked in the past. I think we need to make it future ready as well. I think as Dr. Singh was kind of saying is that there are lots of concepts, there are a lot of Western concepts that are available. I think sometimes we make this fallacy of trying to import that and placing it into our system, saying that this will solve. I'll give you a small example. I think everyone's talking about artificial intelligence and all of that. I'm not sure how many of them really understand that. I think in Cambridge we have done a lot of work on machine learning. I work in the Department of English Language. We have kind of said that we don't yet have any machine learning model linked with artificial intelligence that can completely understand the English language, okay? This is from the University of Cambridge. There are many models that work 80% accurate, 90% accurate, 100% accurate. Just because something works 80% accurate, if you're using it in a life-threatening situation, say we will believe in machine learning and artificial intelligence, that will solve all our problems. I think we should be sensible to kind of say that it works in a situation, say in a bot, someone wants to know about a course program, if you even make a mistake, that's okay. But if a doctor is using artificial intelligence to solve a problem, I think that's not what you're looking at. So coming back to your question, I think there are elements of Gurukula system. What I was kind of trying to say is that it was personal, it was adaptive, and it was focused on outcome. I think every child in that Gurukula system was expected to reach a particular outcome. That is what the focus was. It may take them 5 years, it may take them 10 years, but they were still there. What I was trying to indicate is that technology today has that power to help us or enable teachers or faculty to kind of make sure that they can do an education that could be personalized, that can be adaptive. But the real challenge that we have in this room is that I've seen a lot of college students, school students, is that our students are digital natives. They know how to use technology. I think you give them a project, the 8 students that the professor talked about, they're not going to sit in one room in a table and discussing about their project. They're there wherever they are, they'll probably be using Google Hangouts to kind of share, use a common document to put together a presentation. Somewhere the challenge is as faculty, we are immigrants, I think we are still using technology for the purpose that it's a PPT in a classroom. That is what technology is all about. I think there has to be some kind of faculty education to use the pedagogy of technology inside the class, because students don't want a sage on the stage. They don't want large, big scientists standing and giving them teaching about some subjects. They want a guide on the side because they're here to learn. If technology can enable that, you still use technology to get these top-notch scientists to kind of motivate students, but a faculty is more like a guide on the side, helping students to learn. I think that's the direction we're going. India has done very well in the past. I think currently there are serious limitations in the way we have structured our system. If I ask colleagues in Cambridge, they will say some of the problems in India, they don't understand it, but they say, why should everyone in India do an engineering? Why should everyone do a graduation? Because if you're looking at employability as a problem, I think we're looking at the wrong tree. I think a plumber in UK gets paid 5 times more than a PhD. So I think if that's what we're looking at, where students should earn a lot of money, I think they should probably become a plumber rather than being a researcher. So somewhere we're thinking that by having a graduation, I think we'll make sure everyone's getting a job. I think somewhere, I think the national education policy does talk about it as well. I think all of us are stakeholders there. I think having a master's or having a PhD is not going to solve a lot of our employability issues.
On the second question, I'd just like to say that when we talk of a master-slave relationship, that relationship is one of supremacy, but I would like that technology and education is a relationship, one of symbiosis, and not really of supremacy, because we really believe that it can coexist. Ultimately, a lot of the strategic thoughts behind adoption of technology are taken up by human beings, and I think if it is done right, there is no reason why we should be wary of a master-slave kind of an association, but more of using technology as an enabler, as a propagator of an enhancer of the process of education. That is my personal view.
Sir, who asked this question? Last year in August, there was an article in Forbes, and this talks about a study carried out by EY, as UGC, AICTE and AIU, Association of Universities, which says the children who entered school in 2016, which means about 20 years, 15 to 20 years later, they will come to the corporate. It says 65% of the jobs they will work on don't exist today. I do not know. Gurukul gives us those concepts which was outlined. The values, the heritage, the culture, the strength, the focus, the outcome-based character, we learn from that. But using technology as an enabler, we reach to much higher learning outcomes, and the kind of impact we have on our life of technology, we start thinking that they're part of us. For example, each one of you, including those who are products of the Google or the best of the university, use Google Maps today. Now, Google Maps have become part of our life. We like it, as if it was meant for us. You know, I've seen, I was in one of the robotics lab in Europe. It uses assisted living as a concept. So architects, engineer, and sociology students work together on this. An elderly couple, 90 years plus, living in a home, they can't even get up properly from the bed. There's a smart robot which opens the door, which welcomes the guest. It is connected to the body of the couple through a chip, and any problem in the health transmits to the hospital. And alarm bell is there on, and doctor comes or the help comes to the elderly couple. I think these are to make our life better, rather than being overwhelmed by them. I think we will never be overwhelmed. There are certain things which will remain to be done only and only by human beings, that is creativity and innovation. I think we need to focus on that. Technology will help us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, panelists and audience as well. So if we can take other questions offline because we are running late. So thank you so much.